Netanyahu said yesterday Hamas had violated the ceasefire by turning over incorrect remains in a process of returning the bodies of hostages to Israel. The Prime Minister said remains handed over on Monday belonged to a hostage whose body had already been partially retrieved by the IDF during the war. The deal has been under strain because of the slow progress returning the dead hostages. Hamas has freed the 20 remaining living hostages and returned 15 remains, but 13 are still in Gaza. Shosh Bedrosian is a spokesperson for Israel's government. She said yesterday,
Israel has not only waited patiently during this time, but gave Hamas an opportunity to retrieve and hand over all of our 28 deceased hostages in captivity. We are fully aware and have knowledge that Hamas can locate and retrieve the remains of our 13 deceased hostages that are still in Gaza right now.
So what of the US and their hopes? Speaking at an event in Washington, D.C. last night, Vice President J.D. Vance said,
the president achieved a historic peace in the Middle East. The ceasefire is holding. That doesn't mean that there aren't going to be little skirmishes here and there. We know that Hamas or somebody else within Gaza attacked an IDF soldier. We expect the Israelis are going to respond. But I think the president's peace is going to hold despite it.
First to Nivi Feldman, who's UK lead of the Hostages and Missing Families Forum. Thank you for coming on. How confident are you that Hamas has the details, all the details that are required in this case? Good morning.
Hi, Nick. Thank you for having me. So we know that Hamas definitely knows the location of 10 of the hostages that are still being held. 5 of them they can just release today if they wanted. There's no logistical problems bringing them out, and IDF assumes that 5 of them need, some extra machinery to extract them safely from Gaza.
How do you know that?
IDF has the intel. I think during the captivity since 7th of October, with time they've gathered intel and they had a really good idea where all the hostages were, and they couldn't reach them because Hamas put them in houses or tunnels that are detonated. So if anyone comes through, they're all going to be killed.
How supportive are you of the action ordered by the Israeli Prime Minister yesterday, Nivi?
It's really hard days. It's really, really hard days. Hamas have broken the ceasefire on so many accounts. They promised that the ceasefire will come into effect and all the hostages will come out, and they haven't done that. They've already killed 3 IDF soldiers. The IDF soldier killed yesterday, it wasn't killed by mistake. There was a sniper that took him out plus an RPG. And, Hamas, no one's talking about it, but since the ceasefire came into effect, they've killed 500 of their own Gazan civilians in 2 weeks. It's these numbers are just blowing my mind. They're supposed to be putting their weapons down and letting the war over, and they're tormenting the hostage families. They're tormenting them.
The numbers are absolutely horrific, as you say, Nivi, but how does killing at least 9 Gazans help the situation?
We're at a point that Hamas have to let the hostages back.
But if I pick you up on what you just said, you claim that Hamas have killed 500 of their own people. Why would Israel authorizing these strikes, killing at least 9? Why would that change their mindset? Do you imagine, Nivi?
Look, I'm not in the IDF. I advocate for the last 2 years for the hostage families. So I'm not an expert on why IDF and why the Israeli government are doing what they're doing. We see, yesterday, he was a father for 5 children that was killed, and he had to be there to, under orders to defend Israel. It's the defense forces. He's been killed. He's been murdered. And they have to do what they can to keep the rest of the soldiers defending Israel safe. It's really sad, when any person is killed, it's a whole universe killed, whether it's Israeli or Jewish or Muslim or Palestinian, and it's devastating. And, there's nothing more than I want and Israel wants than let the situation finish, let the war be finished. We all need safety on both sides.
Lastly, on that point, How much do you share the Vice President's confidence that the ceasefire, he describes it as skirmishes, but the ceasefire will essentially hold?
I don't know. I just know that I'm speaking with families that are tormented. The hostage that came back yesterday, Ofir Tzarfati, it was the third time that his remains are coming back. So his family had to bury him 3 times.
Good gracious. Nivi, thank you for your time. Nivi Feldman, your UK lead of the Hostages and Missing Families Forum, 11 minutes after 7. Listening to that, Brigadier John Deverell, who's former Director of Diplomacy at the Ministry of Defence and senior British officer in the Palestinian territories. Can I start with one of the last questions I put to my other contributor, Brigadier? How confident are you that the ceasefire, as it is, might hold? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Well, I'm not confident. I mean, in response to what's been happening in the last 24 hours, the US President himself has said that nothing will be allowed to jeopardize the ceasefire, and he's also said that Israel has the right to hit back. I can answer one question with which your last speaker was grappling, which is why has Israel responded with such indiscriminate and overwhelming force? Firstly, because that's their doctrine, to use overwhelming force, and that, of course, leads to the high risk of violations, unjustified killing of innocent people. And secondly, of course, because, as we've heard so many times, Netanyahu himself wants to stay in power, and he needs to keep his right-wing extremist coalition together for that purpose, and they want to go back to war. And so, therefore, he's walking a tightrope. At the end of the day, to go back to your question, it's an unknown to what extent President Trump can control him.
Brigadier, you're a military bloke. You know war. Isn't it wholly likely that, tragically, some of the remains might never be found, simply as a result of what's taken place there?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think, Nick, the thing is, for thank goodness, for the vast majority of people living in this country, we simply have no idea, thank God, of the conditions in which people are living in Gaza, completely ghastly, and a place which is largely destroyed. To your point, how would it be possible to guarantee to find every single remain of every single person in double quick time? It's quite frankly ridiculous, and it goes back to my point that this is an excuse. Excuses are being looked for by the extremist government of Netanyahu to do what they did in terms of overwhelming force response.
Lastly, Brigadier, what do you see as happening next?
Well, at the same time, Nick, of course, the negotiators are grappling with 3 key questions. Firstly, what will the international force look like? And, of course, different views pertain on that. The second thing they're grappling with is the issue of disarmament of Hamas, which, of course, is a thorny subject. I mean, we ourselves have had some experience of that with regards to the IRA. In the end, the word they used for that was decommissioning. And the third thing, of course, is future governance. And we need to get over this very, very difficult hurdle, mindful of the suffering of innocent people, before we could even get close to those 3 key things which need to follow.